Version 1.7.2 brings some balance adjustments to quite a few Pokemon, and I wanted to go over that in this video. So we have a maintenance coming up on the 14th of May. I don't know exactly when that is. It's like Tuesdays typically. Yeah, it's Tuesday next week. And if we have a look here, it says, points to be updated. New features. Preparation for the anti-research event. That is to be expected, and thankfully they do this a couple days in advance so that they do have some time to fix up if something does happen during the update. And game contents. Changes to the conditions for when the Sleep EXP bonus gauge applies. Before, during Sleep research applied when any helper Pokemon on the team reached the current max level of 55, regardless of the user's research rank. This was something that I thought was odd, and I'm glad that they implemented this change. And what happens now is, after change, during the Sleep research, it will apply when any helper Pokemon on the team has reached the max level possible for the user's research rank at the time. So if you're unfamiliar, the research rank will cap the max level that a Pokemon can be, and you then have to work on your research rank to be able to break that cap on the Pokemon level. So for example, if your research rank level 40, if I'm not mistaken, the max level is like 45 for the Pokemon. And at that point, you wouldn't be getting this EXP bonus gauge, or however you pronounce that. And so this is essentially when you hit your current max rank, then that additional experience is going to go into the little thing that fills up. It is a bad, what would you say, conversion. So for the most part, if you really are looking to level up your Pokemon, then you should switch those out. The only problem is if you have a single team that is really strong, then you are losing out on Drowsy and Dream Shards and all that other stuff if you then switch to really bad Pokemon, if you only have like 5, 6, 7 Pokemon that are really strong. So probably want to look to increase your research rank at that point, but yeah. So note about the Sleep EXP bonus gauge. If the team includes any helper Pokemon that have reached max level, any extra Sleep EXP earned through the Sleep research will be added to the Sleep EXP bonus gauge. Each time the Sleep EXP bonus gauge fills up to 500 EXP, the user receives 1 Handy Candy S. I wish that was 2. But it's a balance feature because you can just imagine the max amount of experience that you're going to get back from that Handy Candy is 3 by 25, and that's 75. So you're getting 15% experience back from all that. So it's not particularly beneficial. And typically when you're getting close to the max level, you probably just want to take the foot off the pedal, like you probably have seen I've done with the Walrein. I could potentially spend my Handy Candy on the Walrein, and that would be worth it because the Walrein is so good. And for each level, I get more Drowsy eventually from those berries. And so, yeah, it's not a particularly good trade. And even if you use those Handy Candy, then for the Mini Candy boost, you have a lost opportunity cost there even. So even at the best like scenario, 150 experience while trading 500, not a good trade. So added new perks to the Novice Researcher bonus. The following perks have been added to the Novice Researcher bonus. And this is apparently just the first week. I was confused about this. I didn't read too much into it in the other video I did. So yeah, 1 additional hungry Pokemon. That's great. For each of the first 7 Sleep research sessions, 1 Pokemon will for sure arrive hungry. Note, this does not apply to the second Sleep research session during the day. And then if all of a user's area bonuses add up to less than 100%, then the researcher's area bonus will increase by 10% each week. This is huge. I think that is a great change, and it really helps ramp on the newer players because like at this point, there is no way to catch up. I kind of like that about this game, to where it is a solo kind of competitive game, which is weird, and it's somewhat adjusted by your wallet. But the thing here is, if you have played since the start, then you're just ahead. And I do understand that they are making changes to minimize that, and I like that. So you get 10% increased each week if you're under 100% total. So let's say if you have 40% at Green Grass, 30% at Zion Beach, and 20 at Taupe Hollow, then this boost will not work for you. But if you have like 10% of Green Grass and that's it, then you'll be getting 10% each week, and that's a bit of drowsy at the end of the day. And so here are all the balance adjustments. That is the main part of this video that I'm super curious about. So we can see Golduck has got a buff. I think Golduck overall is already a pretty decent Pokemon, and we'll have a deep look at all of these Pokemon. And then we can see yet again Persian, Lucario, Wobbuffet, bottom of the barrel Pokemon. I would say Lucario probably D tier. Wobbuffet still F tier. It does not work. And I see what they try to do here. One change that I do think was pretty big though is Persian. We did talk a little bit about Persian earlier in the week, because one of you guys commented that you were running a pretty good berry finding Persian on Snowdrop Tundra. I still think that the main skill spend on the Dream Magnet or Dream Shard Magnet Pokemon is too big to really justify it. But excuse me, the Persian used to be 50 minutes on the frequency, and I have already updated it. So now it is going to be 46 minutes and 40 seconds. That is pretty huge. If we pop into the comparison, we can see that the Lucario, which also got a boost, it used to be 45 minutes. It is now 43:20. So that is a pretty big buff. And I think we can compare the Persian to the Swalot. I think overall Swalot is the best Dream Shard Magnet Pokemon. The main reason is not only does it evolve, but it has a huge skill rate. So even though it is slower, it is just miles ahead in terms of skill rate. And if you add those together, then that becomes pretty favorable for the Swalot. I think after this speed change for the Lucario, that the Lucario and the Swalot are more even. And if you do run the Lucario on Lapis Lakeside with a berry finding, I do think there is a bit of value here now, as this frequency is getting close to 40 minutes at base. And that makes me happy, because I do have a Lucario that has the berry finding, and it has skill level up M as well, and I think helping bonus somewhere in there too. It's just a very crazy Lucario, and yeah, I'm glad to see the buff. So if we hop back into the game, we can see that it is the Persian that has the biggest buff here in my opinion. 200 seconds shortened, that's like several minutes. And we see the Lucario. The Wobbuffet also getting a buff. I don't see the Wobbuffet having a change here yet. And the biggest reason is still the fact that it's super slow. So despite the fact that the skill rate now went from 5.8, I believe, to 6.4, and it also got a little bit added to its inventory. I think I added that. I have to double check. Thankfully, I've left a track in the info here. Yeah, it used to be 10. So if you evolved it from Why Not, it would have 15 in that inventory. And that's the problem, because for the skill triggers, once you hit Sneaky Snacking, you won't be getting any more banked potential skill triggers. So that is a problem. So I don't know, not a fan of Wobbuffet. At some point in time, it could potentially have done something at Lapis Lakeside, but Gardevoir came in, just power crept it beyond saving, because the Gardevoir is also a psychic Pokemon with a Mago Berry, and that does not work too well for the Wobbuffet. So even if there is a Mago Berry area again in the future, then Gardevoir is still probably going to win by a lot. So it's not looking too good on the Wobbuffet. I think potentially what they could do in the future to balance Wobbuffet a little bit would be to bring this speed to 50 and give it another mushroom in each of these slots. And then potentially it could be worthwhile, and it would also need a little bit more inventory. Then I would consider it. But as it stands, Wobbuffet's still one of the worst Pokemon in the game. I don't recommend it. So even with a buff here, I don't think it's worthwhile to use. The last Pokemon here is Golduck, and this is pretty big in my opinion. Wait, the ingredient rate, is it not updated? Hang on a second, that should have been higher. Give me 1 second, I need to look over here. I thought it ended up at like 15%. What's up with that? Hang on a second. There is something wrong in my widget and I'm not happy about it. So oh, hang on. I did an oopsie, a big one of that. I increased the skill rate. Let's see, it is the ingredient rate. Of course. There we go. Apologies. And I have to go over the other Pokemon and make sure I didn't do that for them too. There we go, 16%. So the Golduck is getting a buff to its ingredient finding rate and a little bit on the inventory. I have added the inventory correctly. And so we see that the ingredient rate now is 16%. For those of you who have been hunting a berry finding Psyduck, that still won't be a problem in my opinion. What is nice here is if you find the Psyduck and you evolve it into the Golduck, then even though it drops 4 and 6 apples, this won't be a problem. And the reason is the skill right here. It is such a high chance of proccing when you pop it that the inventory here will never be a problem, because if you are running a Golduck, you are going to open the app every 20 minutes. That's just how the Golduck works. And I think with the increased ingredient rate here, Golduck becomes a viable apple Pokemon in my opinion. And so whenever I look for the Psyduck, I am going to look for the double apple, and I'm just going to be happy with that. So I'm actually going to prioritize the ingredient list on a skill specialist, which is rather odd, but it is due to that high skill rate, the fact that you don't need no inventory. And if you can get the berry finding and you don't even need the skill triggers. That's what's so crazy about it, because the chance, like if you buff it with all the skill triggers, you get like 20%. Like that's ridiculous. If you have the main skill chance up, the skill trigger S, and the skill trigger M, I think you get pretty close to 20%, which means if you then have a good camp ticket and you have some helping bonus on the other Pokemon, and maybe even have a speed on the Golduck, that would be late though. But even that, like level 50, if you get main skill chan, or main, what is it called? The skill trigger S, skill trigger M, helping speed M with the main skill chance up on the Golduck, that's ridiculous. 20%. That's like every 5 tap on average, you're supposed to get a skill trigger. So I think for the Golduck, it kind of makes sense to even go for that, but I don't know, like just practically, like how many times don't you have to like click the game to run it optimally? And I am wondering if the strategy there is to go for berry finding, maybe even a contradictory ingredient finder M on it, but maybe not. You know what, let's hop into the builder. I'm just super curious now about the Golduck, because Golduck is an interesting Pokemon I've had my eye on for a long time, just because the potential is there. And I think as we move into Water Week and the Suicune research with the combos of the water type Pokemon, I do think Golduck is going to be picking up on a lot of use. So let's see, I think the careful nature is not going to be too good. Yeah, so I would personally want just a neutral thing on the ingredient Pokemon. Let's see. Where is the careful again? I don't even like the sassy too good. The reason is it's going to take away too much. Yeah, the gentle nature. That would be perfect on the Golduck. And I do want the bear finding for sure because it's not going to carry its weight unless you have the berry finding, I think. Skill trigger M could be nice and the skill level up M as well. Guess honorable mentions would be the skill trigger S and the helping speed M. This would be the hopes and dreams scenario. Maybe not in this order, but something like this. Guess maybe you want the skill level up M a little bit later because the skill trigger M is going to compensate a lot, but we'll just have to see. I probably will go on a pretty extensive Psyduck hunt at some point in time, just because there aren't too many games where Golduck is usable, and for the most part, I tend to use in the main series games Psyduck and Golduck as a team member to help catching because they have a lot of interesting moves like Soak and Disable and just Thunder Wave, stuff like that. They have the Damp ability. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm happy to see Golduck getting a buff. If it gets another buff in the future, then I do think it's going to be pushed into viability. Even though Golduck is not a particularly strong Pokemon as it stands, it's looking good, especially with the water combo. And then the bottom of the notice here says about the Pokemon Go++ implementation of improvements so regular sleep research can be conducted for both sessions when 2 sleep tracking sessions are reported at the same time via Go++. So essentially what happens if you override in a way or overwrite the sleep sessions, then there's going to be like an automated sleep session where the game just hands the premium biscuit to a Pokemon. And I don't know exactly how it works actually because it just does not work too well. You could potentially miss out on shinies. If Pokemon are hungry, then oh well. I don't think it's just going to like spend all of your biscuits. So what this change means, if I'm understanding it correctly, is you know how I've been doing the main session and then I've waited to connect and then done the nap session. I'm thinking here you can just connect both at the same time and then you get them back to back. That could be nice. And so this was a pretty lengthy update video, but I do think there is a lot of good stuff in here. And overall, I'm just very satisfied with Select Button, the developers for this game. And they are really communicating very clearly. They are updating the game frequently with new content and keeping the player base engaged and making some interesting meta changes here. I am excited about the Persian, Golduck, and Lucario, and still not on the Wobbuffet. It is too slow. It should have better ingredients. It's just a bad Pokemon overall because Gardevoir is so powerful. Like, if you can run Wobbuffet and Gardevoir somehow, that could be nice, but as it stands, the main skill seeds are not worth it to dump into the Wobbuffet, and it's just not a good Pokemon. So, hope you enjoyed this update. Leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts on this update, and if there's anything you would like to see in future balance changes as well. So, I'll see you around tomorrow in another video, unless this one goes out before the sleep research. I don't know yet. We'll just have to see. There should be 2 videos today.